Hello everybody, back again for today. Going to do another response. This one is for the experimental vinyl tag. I saw the always killer Dave Gibson, Mr. Local Bandography, post his, and I found the original thread by Motoric, who somebody I didn't even know about, so sub to you, buddy. And, you know, jumping on in, interesting stuff. Some of it I had to think about, some of it just immediately came to me. But 8 questions here, and I actually have 9 vinyl records to show. First one, a show record with improvisation. This is Flying Basket by Akira Sakato with Jim O'Rourke and Chikamurachi and Merzbow. Essentially one long hour and like 10 or 12 minute long track that is somewhere in between jazz, noise, ambient, drone, and nonsense. It's just everywhere. At times it's very soft and beautiful, at times it's very loud, but it is always entertaining. And from what I can feel, I feel like the entire thing is just laid out there. It's improvised. It's just, there you go away with it. The next one, show a record with Moog on it. And there's so many ways I could have gone with that, because Moog isn't just, I mean, everybody thinks Moog, they think, you know, the synthesizers, the mini Moog or something. But my sort of immediate thought was to go with Moog effects, because I know like my favorite guitarist, Vernon Reid, in a lot of his solo albums or the albums he did with Mask, you know, he loves to use Moog effects, the Moogerfooger, the MF 104, 107. But with this one, I decided to go with just Moog synthesizers, and I decided to go modern with it. The great band album Second Sight, they use an array of vintage synthesizers, Moog included in there. Great band. They haven't come out with anything for a couple of years, so I don't know if they're still together, but out of Ohio, I believe, and they do some really cool vintage sort of psychedelic progressive sounding music. Really like them. Number 3, show an album with field recordings. This is the one that immediately jumped out at me. Graham Revell, The Insect Musicians. This is a really interesting album. It uses field recordings of insect noises, all different kinds. I mean, everything. What do we got on here? We got the Indonesian cicada, meadow grasshopper, death head moth hawk. I mean, it just goes on. The tist fly, the giant wood wasp, gnats, hawk moth, hornet. You get the idea. All kinds of different insects from all over the world. That Graham Revell took these recordings of them, processed them through a computer, and played them by sampling it through a synthesizer. So it's sort of orchestrated insect sounds. It's pretty cool. At times it sounds just a little cheesy and synthetic. Other times it's almost sort of, I don't want to say menacing, but it's kind of dark and eerie. Cool album. First one that came to mind when I thought about that. Next one is show an album of drone. I have 2 albums here that I'm going to show, because one is sort of minimalistic and the other is a bit more broad in range. But first one we got Cowabunta Makoto. It's the Astro Kisses, Astro Love and Infinite Kisses. Cowabunta Makoto, of course, if you know me from Ask Mother's Temple, one of my absolute favorite bands. But a lot of his solo work is just drone. And the reason I really like it is it's not noise drone in the fact that it's, you know, digital, it's not electronic. He uses a lot of Asian stringed instruments that he just overlays on top of one another. And it's all, and for the most part, it's all like you're listening to it and you're like, oh, okay, it's acoustic instruments. And it gives a very interesting sort of orchestrated sound to it, where it's just layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. And every time you hear it, you sort of focus on something different, if that makes sense. But really cool. Love, I could have picked so many from him. And the other one, very minimalistic. It's, speak, David, speak. Tatsuya Nakatani Gong Orchestra. This is played literally with 9 gongs, and that's it. It is mellow. It is sort of dreamy, and in a weird way, almost sounds like a monastery, like monks, if that makes any sense. Almost like them chanting. And he plays the gongs in a way that it's not just like boom, crash. I mean, he's literally rubbing his hands on them. He's scraping mallets or drumsticks across them. He's breathing on them. He's talking into them. So all kinds of interesting and different techniques that he uses. But another one, sort of minimalistic, where the other one is sort of grandiose in a way. So show a record next up with spoken word. My mind immediately went to this one. Kuik Heen. I could have taken any of their albums, but this is a band I've recently discovered within like the last year and a half. Awesome collection of musicians. They do the spoken word aspect of it anyways, is they have Native American musicians come in and they do native spoken word and oral traditions that they play over this music, which is sort of just a jam thing. It's funky, it's soulful, it's rock, it's jazzy, and they basically tell native stories over it as if they were around a campfire. And some of them on here will go like Killer Whale Creation. Literally tells a story of a guy on how he created the killer whale in order to gain revenge against, his brother-in-laws who tried to kill him. Or Raven's First Dance, is basically a way of showing be kind to your neighbor, because if you are to them and you pass it along, then the world will get along. The raven goes into the cave to hide from the weather, and he's in there with the bear, and the bear gives him his welcoming and squeezes out his soul to him, and he passes that along, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. Pretty band. Kuik, I know it's spelled weird. Take a look at there. Check them out if you can. I've talked about them before. Next we got show an album with a processed instrument. Again, I could have gone so many ways with this one, but my mind immediately went to this record, which I hadn't spun for a while. So it was fun because I actually spun it. But Cyclomazia, this is some really, I mean, just fucking top notch, like progressive psychedelic music. It's the best way I could say, that has spoken word poetry on top. So you kind of almost go spoken word with this one too. But the processed instrument element is it uses organs and synthesizers, and the organ is sort of, it's not just played, it's fed through various effects. I'm pretty sure there are guitar effects, and sort of distorted out through the amps instead of being played clean. So you get all kinds of weird oscillations and like what's that called? The ring modulations and feedback noises that you think when you listen to it, you're like, is it keys or is it guitar? It almost sounds like a guitar, and in various ways that are like, feedbacking and ringing and reverberating over itself. But killer one, that's the one that came with me. The next one really threw me for a curve. This was show an album with the Nurse with Wound list. And I was like, what the fuck is a Nurse with Wound list? Never heard of it. Had to look it up. I found a bunch of musicians on it. It's like 200 some odd musicians, 300 musicians, something like that. And several of them I had material by, but the first one that really threw out on me was Faust. And I thought of this album. Faust with Omar Rodriguez Lopez live at Cloud Hills. It's one track. It's This Is Not Music, This Is Not Us, and We Are Not Here, part 1 and 2. It is some just whacked out experimental stuff that you're listening to it and you don't know where it's going to go and you don't really know what's happening, but you just enjoy it. part electronic, part, I guess you'd call progressive. It's out there and it's delicious. The last one, toy instrument. Show an album with a toy instrument. This one kind of caught me sort of off guard because whilst I'm sure there's plenty of them out there, I couldn't immediately think of one. But the one I did think of was a melodica, which is kind of a toy instrument. And I know Jack DeJohnette uses it quite often. So Jack DeJohnette Special Edition. I think there's 2 or 3 tracks on here where he plays melodica on it, and that's all I got. I'm sure there's more if I really dove into it and think about it, but that was the first one that came to mind. Hope you all enjoy. If anybody else does a response, please tag it in the video so I can see. I'd appreciate that. And as always, till next time.